Welcome to a new season of Beta Talk. I'd like to thank all my listeners that support this show. Without you, it wouldn't really work. This season is being sponsored by Intergas Heating Solutions, and we recorded it at their HQ. I travelled down with my very good friend Steve Webster. Regular listeners will know I describe Steve as my favourite renewable heating engineer, heat pump engineer, and we went down to see a very good friend of ours, Dave Hall, at Intergas. Also, for my regular listeners, you may find, I did when I was listening back to it, that I think I sound a little bit anxious or overwhelmed, and there's a reason because of that. Steve Webster is kind of lucky to be with us. He's a fighter, that's why he's with us. A while back he had heart failure, his heart stopped, and luckily a passerby managed to resuscitate him and give him heart compressions and keep oxygen going to the brain. He was in an induced coma, and he survived, and and then he went and got throat cancer and spent about 6 weeks every morning, I think, or every other day, where he had to literally have his head bolted to a steel table or a table, and this special machine revolved around his head and zapped the cancer. So I love Steve a lot. We travelled down there. It was quite a long journey to get down there. We had obviously a great giggle. It's the first time I've been with Steve, and it's also the first time we've managed to catch up with Dave Hall, all three of us. Dave and Steve have been sort of in this sort of whole renewable thing for a long time. I mean, Steve, I think the company he was working for was the fourth company to be put on the register for MCS when that first started. It was a very enjoyable episode, quite overwhelming for me, and you might pick that up. Obviously, while we were recording it, we were all looking forward to. We'd booked a meal, and we were going to a hotel, and we could all catch up and share our war stories and all this kind of thing. So it's a fantastic episode. We went down there, Steve and I, because Steve's been testing the stainless steel cylinders that they are making for the heat pump industry, and I've got a bit of an association with cylinders. My brother makes them. He makes very big ones. Some of them are larger than houses. He's worked with stainless steel since he left school. I grew up in Norwich, which is where a very famous unvented heat pump, very famous stainless steel hot water manufacturer was based. And back in, I think, 1984, which was when the Building Act changed, where this country could start to use unvented cylinders. I think we were the last country in Europe to do it. So I was lucky. I went to college where they had an off-site workshop which had all the unvented systems set up for us to train on. And I imagine because of the manufacturer in that location, it was one of the it was a very new thing, unvented. So I've kind of gotten interested in the cylinders that are being manufactured in this industry. So it's a great honour for me to be sponsored by Intergas, who are making these very good cylinders. So the first sort of part of the episode, we're going to be sort of probably having a bit of a technical deep dive into cylinders and the features and benefits, but there's lots of lovely little anecdotal stories throughout the episode. Obviously, Steve can chat about this, how he was first getting involved in the industry, and it's the same with Dave as well. So I really enjoyed this episode. I hope you do too. People are starting to talk about cylinders now in the heat pump industry, aren't they, Steve? Because it's something we've been.
It's becoming a relevant subject now. Obviously, we've gone through sizes of radiators, pulling in the underfloor heating loops, things like that for getting the heating gain. But now hot water is becoming quite at the forefront. We need speed of recovery, we need efficiency of recovery, and just the performance of the cylinder.
And these cylinders are, anyone that knows a bit about stainless steel, they're graded. So my brother works a lot with 316, but this is 444, which is a very sort of a hard. It's probably got no nickel in it, then, Dave, has it?
Correct. No nickel at all.
Yeah. And you both went out to. When did you both go out to the factory?
We actually went out in January 2024.
Yeah.
So before Steve was actually went off with one of his many illnesses.
Yeah, in between dying.
So one of the reasons, and the other sort of thing, people that are becoming interested in the heating industry now, obviously I run the podcast, lots of people are becoming interested. And so what happened was the parent company of Intergas bought a very well-known company in the Netherlands that has been making cylinders for a long time. They make cylinders for some very well-known entities in North America, Australia. Some of the sort of cylinders we've been using in the commercial. Any engineers that have been in the heat pump game for a long time, and there's a Swedish company that's very famous, and Steve would have worked with them years ago in EB, and their cylinders were being made by De Jong, which is kind of like a very common name in the Netherlands, and now De Jong is part of your group, isn't it? And
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, De Jong is like Saint Smith in the UK, and they've been manufacturing cylinders now since the company started in 1859, actually making milk churns, and then over the years have always been involved in making stainless steel products. Yes, they did some copper products through the time, but since about 1970, been manufacturing unvented and vented stainless steel cylinders.
And they've been making them for quite a few people as well, haven't they?
Yes, yeah, sort of all of the main household names that you'd sort of see across Europe within the heat pump world have been buying their cylinders from De Jong.
And they've got a very good build quality, and you've had some cylinders under test for a little while now, Steve.
We have, yeah. Dave, through De Jong, was very kind enough to forward us some product to test out. And first of all, I went to the factory to look at the build quality, and the difference in the manufacturing process is quite pronounced. Obviously, over the years, I've been to several manufacturers, and going to see a cylinder manufacturer isn't maybe the most exciting thing on someone's agenda, but I've got to say, I was really pleased I went. I did see a marked difference in how that process goes. And where you mentioned 444 as the stainless, I think most people think of the grade 316, which is the food grade stainless, as being the top grade. But 444, and I was sitting there with the expert Dave, but it's a much harder product. So with the lack of nickel, it's much stronger. When you get the standard cylinders and some of the wall thicknesses that we come across, some of the damage that you can see is quite extensive. Some of the stuff that's coming out, because obviously everything's coated now in insulation and jacketed, either hard or soft jacketed, and you're completely unaware of this when people are installing these products, and some of the damage, some of the work that's going on isn't particularly great. But De Jong have really majored on their quality control, and it's a really good product. So I was interested, very impressed. So then we went on, Dave then provided some kit for us, and we've been testing them with heat pumps. We've done both ground source and air source, and the results have been very, very impressive. One of the big things is obviously recovery times. So one of the ones we've got a 12 kilowatt on a 180 cylinder. That's picking up from an incoming main temperature of 10, and we're achieving 47 degrees in the cylinder within 20 minutes. Now that is, as you know, is a very fast recovery time. And one of the reasons for that is the coil. And I think Dave will probably be the man to explain that. But what I see of that, the difference, a lot of manufacturers now are using this soft corrugated 22mm pipe, which is very easy to shape, and they put inside within a cage, like a plastic cage, to hold it in shape. Whereas De Jong are making a 28mm rigid coil, they've developed what they call the Diablo effect, so that the coil itself is wasted. By that I don't mean wasted away. It reduces into the centre, then out again. So looks like a Diablo, and they've seen that increases the stratification within the cylinder, and obviously we can get a high performance. We can get good kilowatt flow rates through that cylinder. And again, Dave will be the man to tell us about some of the tests they've done. They've got some very impressive software so that they can put the performance of a particular heat pump through that software to see what results they're going to get from that cylinder.
How's that coil made then, Dave?
So the coil is actually made within our own factory, and it's you're sort of looking at about 17 metres long as far as a coil goes, and then we shape it to actually make sure that it fits perfectly into the cylinder. So when you sort of cut open and have a look at it, the coil is actually going right down to the bottom of the cylinder.
Yeah, I noticed that, because normally when you we used to cut them open at colleges to sort of show students what an indirect cylinder would look like, and the coil would start at the entry point of where you turn basically, but yours dips right down to the bottom of the cylinder.
Correct, and then as it comes up there, we've got a space for where the immersion would be. So we're keeping a space for that, and where the sensor pockets would be, but then we're taking it as far as we can possibly take up to the top of the cylinder as well. So we're making sure that we're getting a full coverage of that. Within the coil itself, we almost have like a rifle effect within that. So as the water comes through the coil, it spins it through. So again, you get a very good transfer of heat within that cylinder. The way we fix the cylinder in the coil within the cylinder too, we ensure that we get no vibration across that. So it's a very, very quiet cylinder. You get no humming, no noises from that. Yeah, so you get none of that within that. So again, we're trying to give it the best that we can. One of the key things really is that all of the components within the cylinder are 444. So we're not changing to any other material within that. So everything across that. So we got a commonality right across that, which means then that from a corrosion resistance,
no dissimilar metals. Yeah,
you're getting a really good sort of guarantee that we're going to be up there as far as the best on corrosion resistance.
Because you and I have probably scrapped quite a lot of cylinders that we've had to take out probably prematurely, Steve, haven't we? Because, I mean, one of the things I was impressed with is build quality, because I have welded, but I'm not a welder by any stretch. You can weld, Steve, and obviously my brother, he doesn't like being called a welder, but he's been doing it all his life, basically. He likes to be called a fabricator, but he tigs, migs and sticks. But the quality of welds on some cylinders isn't great historically in the last recent years, is it?
No, there's a lot of the fabrication is done by in-house trained fabricators now, whereas what I saw at De Jong was it's all machine welded, very, very high quality. They then fully pressurise the cylinder in a tank of water, and it's then monitored for, I can't remember how long, Dave.
They hold it for about 10 minutes, each cylinder, and you've got gauges on there to see that we've actually got that pressure being held at 5 bar pressure.
And a visual test, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
Because one of the problems, and this has happened, ironically, a cylinder I put in for my brother quite a few years back, and for my dad, you'd get a drip, and so instantly your customer's going to think, well, that's the plumber's fault because they haven't tightened the fitting or something, but it's actually come from the weld where a BUS fitting has gone in and been attached to the cylinder. And of course, it's not your fault as the plumber, but who gets blamed? We do, don't we? Yeah, so build quality has always been quite important for me.
BUS is probably the most common failure point on the cylinders, which another thing with the De Jong product, they swage the cylinder where the bosses and tappings are going to be in, and then that gives them a very clean finish and a clean weld point. And because of the extra thickness of the steel itself, they don't have to put any strengthening collars. You'll find some manufacturers use a thin grade, and then around wherever any tapping is going into it, they have to put a collar so they've got enough meat there to hold it. Another little nice point is, obviously we have to fix pipe work, and we need to steady pipe work like D2s, things like that, and our flow and returns. We're now using 28s and 35s, 32 copper. So we always have this issue of fixing Munson rings and things to the shell. And you have to be very careful, because if you read the small print in your warranty, you'll find you're probably going to breach your warranty by fixing those Munson rings to the cylinder. But these have been thought out really well, and they weld bosses onto the cylinder, ready for you to just turn a bit of 10mm stud into and put your Munson rings on.
Yeah, it's part of the build, isn't it, Dave?
Yes, yeah, and we've tried to put them in places where, in between where your pipe work is, just to make sure that it's falling down from where your TMP is, so you can pick that straight up in between the coil. So again, you've got a perfect spot really where you can hold it and make it all completely rigid.
And talking about build quality, I mean, the Germans are famous for having. I mean, all the German boiler manufacturers I know, they've always used Dijon for their cylinders, haven't they?
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of the famous or the typical
household names.
Yes, sort of German manufacturers all buy cylinders now from Dijon still. And
going back to your point, Steve, about the clipping thing, because most cylinders, when you get a cylinder and then it has to be insulated, so the insulation process is usually where they've got then a shell, and then spray type foam gets sprayed into it, and that's sometimes a bit of a hit and miss. Sometimes you've got areas where that's not in it.
Yes.
This is a different. You do your insulation method differently, don't you, Dave?
Yeah, definitely. We use a pre-formed insulation that's graphite impregnated, so that gives it a better insulation value. And it's just like a Meccano kit really, or a Lego kit. So we've got the top, the bottom, and the sides that are all linked together to make sure that we get a complete insulant value right across the whole of the cylinder.
Yeah. Because I'm just thinking, Steve, them old, so the original stuff you used to work on the Nebis, them big old, big cylinders.
They would have been
Dijon, weren't they?
Yeah. They used to use Dijon for their buffers and cylinders up until recent time. I'm not quite sure when it changed, but.
And there'd be a pickling process as well for this metal, wouldn't there? And
yes, that's something we take particular sort of interest in, really, purely because with 444 stainless, it is important to actually make sure you pickle and passivate. So the pickling process is effectively like a big washing machine, where the cylinder goes into that and is washed inside and outside, and then once it comes out of that pickling process, the passivation is it actually just effectively like curing on it. So it sits there and over a period of 24 to 48 hours that passivation takes place to make sure that the cylinder has recovered from all the welding that's actually gone on it.
What sort of size? And the cylinders are called Intergas, aren't they? And so if people want to get them, I mean, they can go to merchants or
yes, yeah. All of your merchants will stock, by Intergas product already. So all of your merchants will have the ability to buy all of our product.
I think it's called the X cylinder, isn't it?
Yeah. With all of our products, if you look at a lot of the Intergas products, they have a X at the start of them there. So we've got Extend, Exceed. Yeah. So it sort of all made sense really to call it Zylinder. So that was really where that came from.
And you mentioned the history of Dijon. So it was the whole milk industry. They were making milk churns.
Yeah, the cylinders are actually made in an area of the Netherlands called the Friesland, where all the Frisian cows come from. So it was very, very very strong in the dairy industry, so that's really where they started. And the factory was actually set up almost, sort of in you've got houses all the way around it, so that people would come in, get their cans and then go and get the milk locally. So it's even to this day, there's houses literally walk across the road, and you're in sort of houses all the way around the factory.
Yeah. Like being in the middle of a housing estate, you just suddenly come across a huge factory.
So cylinders is, as people talk about the heat pump industry, Steve, and obviously government talk about it, my friends at Nesta talk about it, and so people start to learn, that hot water storage is a big thing, because we've been living with lots of combi boilers now in the country, sort of thing, and because now we're looking for being able to site a cylinder. And have there been sort of any issues with cylinders as this sort of heat pump industry started to grow, and hopefully it's still going to grow?
Right.
We've talked about sort of the corrosion industry, the corrosion sort of aspects, and how some cylinders, poor build quality, can leak, and that's a bit of a problem. You've got warranty issues, haven't you? But are there any other issues with this? Obviously size, and you've got to get the size right, I suppose, haven't you?
Damage during delivery is something that you hear quite a lot of now, and we've experienced it with other manufacturers, because unfortunately everyone's using carriers now, and you are really at the mercy of how well packaged that product is. It can leave the factory in perfectly good condition, but it might go through 3 or 4 different transport companies before it arrives at your doorstep or your merchant's doorstep. And there's nothing worse to be at that point of an installation, unwrap the cylinder, and you find it's damaged, dented, especially with hard shell cylinders. You can't hide it up. So you're then in a situation, you're trying to finish the job. You've either got to come to an agreement with the customer, who's going to have to accept a slightly substandard product. It's not going to be leaking, anything else, but just not
dented.
look. It's dented. So it can create a lot of issues. It's not a nice way to start the journey of handing over a system to a customer who's excited to have just spent quite a sizable chunk of money. So that's something, again, that I've got to say...
It's an important issue, isn't it?
It is, and I've got to say, De Jong, how they're sending them out, well, it's not De Jong, it's Intergas, because obviously the cylinders come into the UK and are then finished and packed from this factory and sent out. And the standard of packaging is really robust and solid. They come in a very good case. They're well built, well fixed to a pallet. And I've had experience of this myself when we had a delivery only this week, and the cylinder was too tall to come out through the back of the shutter of the delivery truck. And I pointed that out to the driver before I could hop up onto the back to give him a hand. He'd tried pushing it over to get it out at an angle. The whole thing went over, hit the floor in the lorry. So obviously, right, we're going to have to check this before you go, because you might be taking it back with you. And to my happy surprise, we stripped it down, got the packaging off, no damage whatsoever. It survived a fairly hefty hit.
I suppose there's two reasons for that, because the way that it's packaged for delivery is good, but it's because it's a soft shell, David, because these cylinders, the way cylinders have been made in this country is that this spray foam gets sprayed in between the outer case and the actual cylinder. So this is a kind of a soft shell, because you're wrapping around that insulation that you build up around the cylinder.
Correct, because it's a pre-formed insulation. We're then just wrapping a soft shell around that, which can be any colour as well, but we chose to do it white because that seems to be the favourite colour in the UK for cylinders. But then that does give you that little bit there, because it's basically almost like a polystyrene type, so there's a bit of give in that. So having the soft shell, if something hit that, you don't get the damage like you would on a steel casing. But from my years really, when I was in the boiler industry, boilers would turn up at people's houses. They'd be on a carrier and they'd take the cover off, and there'd be a big dent in the side of that. In other factories, from a cylinder perspective, you've sort of seen the same thing where it's turned up and been damaged. So that was a big consideration for me when we looked at how we were going to pack that, to make sure that we're selling a quality product here, and we want that to turn up in the same state that it's actually left us. So there has been a lot of thought really gone into how we package that, to make sure that when Steve takes the covers off, he goes, that's how it was made in the factory.
Yeah, because you can be right out in the sticks in Norfolk,
Exactly.
can't you? You don't want to open something up and you can't do a day's work with it.
Well, at the point you're fitting the cylinder, you're towards the end of the install, and normally there's a time constraint. You've got other work booked ahead of you. You don't need that inconvenience. The last thing you want on that big day of the changeover, obviously, if it's a retrofit, you've removed the existing hot water system. You're relying on getting that back in and hopefully running that day. So all of a sudden you're faced with damaged products. You've got to get that returned. You've got to agree that the damage has happened in transit, not in your custody. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean it was delivered that day. It could have been there 3 or 4 days or a week or two ahead. And so, it's sometimes it just takes a bit of pressure to get them to agree to replace the product. And if it happens to be a bespoke size, something like that, suddenly you've got big delays.
What are these sizes, Dave?
The sort of average sizes that we do is from 150 litre right up to 300 litre as standard. That's what we keep in stock here. We do make up to 1,000 litre, and we can go down as low as 5 litre. So we can make all different sizes right across that, but generally they sort of go between a 150 and a 300 litre are our standard sizes.
Buffer vessels, are they made from the same stuff as well? Yeah?
Exactly, yeah. So we make
little buffer vessels,
buffers from 40 litres and 80 litres. Slightly different in the way that we do that, because we don't put the white casing on that.
Right.
So we make that as a robust outer black casing, but it's still 444. Still made in exactly the same way, but that's just a buffer to go with your heat pumps.
Nice thing with that buffer, if I can jump in there, is it's a wall-mounted unit, and whereas normally you've got opposite sides flow and returns in and out of your buffer, these have got 4 tappings, and you can invert the unit so they can either be 4 tappings at the top or at the bottom. I suppose you could even mount it on the side. Yeah. So basically you can rotate at 360, and it's a square unit within the is it a round?
It's a round cylinder inside. Yeah, it is, with a square casing on it.
But it's a square casing, so that is quite handy. And with the tappings just coming in, as I say, on the top or the bottom, because you're always in space constraints.
Now, while we've mentioned buffers, obviously it's always one of the big controversial topics in the industry. Is it buffer or no buffer? But you will design for what a particular property needs. If it needs one, it adds one. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, there's no. I don't think you can say there's any hard and fast rule. You have to take every system on its merits. If you can get enough open loop, if you can get away with it, you don't want a buffer. Whatever you do, if you've got any hydraulic separation, you will lose a percentage of efficiency. If you're fitting a heat pump system, the last thing we want to do is give efficiency away. But if you've got, say we've got radiators in the system, no underfloor, if we need preferably a 4 to 5 degree delta for our heat pump, but if those radiators are a little bit tight on sizing, things like that, we might be having to look at a delta of 9 to 10 degrees on the radiator side. So to take that distortion out, then we must use a buffer. It's ideal to use a buffer. Or you might just use the buffer with 2 pipes and create it as a volumizer. Put that in on the return, just to give us some decent run times on the heat pump, so we're not cycling in and out.
Someone can buy them. You make pre-plumbed units for certain people, don't you? But
Yes.
people can buy them not pre-plumbed as well.
Yeah. We stock them. So we at any one time we got over 1,000 cylinders in stock. So we stock them in their raw state as such as a standard cylinder, and then whatever an installer, a merchant, a developer, or whatever would like from a pre-plumb, we can make that to suit.
And so you two have been both older than me, aren't you? Well, I say you are, Dave. I think you are, but you've been around heat pumps for quite a while, both of you now, haven't you? I mean, what years were you sort of getting involved again?
Yeah, sort of about 2006,
2006, 2007 was when I met you.
Yeah, because you two have known each other for a while, haven't you? And so, what sort of differences have you seen? So let's look at the last sort of 2 years. Has there been a massive change? Lots of people talking about there has been a massive change. We had the BUS scheme, etc., etc. What are the sort of things you've noticed over that time period?
It's probably slightly different for the two of us, really. But from a manufacturing point of view, I've seen obviously the difference in gases, really, on how and the efficiencies within them, and the changes that, you know, from a government perspective, people are actually asking for different gases that are better for the environment, etc. So, you know, going from, you know, sort of 410A right the way up to R290 now, you know, so that's been the biggest difference that I've seen, you know. And the early stages were inverter driven, soft starts, all of these things came in, and, you know, I've seen those right from the early stages, which basically the first ones that I got involved, you could probably describe as the Model T Fords, really, right the way up to what you've got today.
Steve probably had a Model
He
T
did,
Ford.
yeah.
Well, I did development work with Dave on the first heat pumps, and it really was seat of the pants learning, because how the heat pump, they were all direct online, which means it's a single speed compressor, and it's either on or it's off, and so they have to wait. They used to rely on the temperature to drop on the return. The sensor would have to see a temperature drop before it would switch back in. And the first problem that we encountered, we could get it running on the heating in its heating temperature mode fairly well. Over onto hot water duty, and of course you've only got a limited amount of water. We weren't understanding volumes required and things like that then, and so it would do one hot water run up to temperature on the return from the cylinder, switch off, but because the cylinder was at a temperature as well that was above the switch on point, it had to actually take the heat out of the cylinder and wait for that to drop before it switched back in. And we're looking at it and thinking, why can't we get the hot water to eventually worked out? You've got to add volume. So we used to have to get it to divert through a buffer. And the changes to suddenly when inverters came along, it was... it was like going to another planet.
And I suppose your advantage is you've learned sort of the hard way, which is sometimes the best way to learn. You learn through mistakes and success, which is why, you know, when people ask me why do I say Steve, one of the best engineers I know in the UK. Well, if you look at sort of the new heat engineers that are really doing great stuff today, like Damon, you know, some of these elite heat geeks, but they're always ringing you up to ask about certain issues and stuff, because they've learned a lot of the stuff. Because you were there at sort of the beginning of this new culture of heat pumps when it came into the country, wasn't it?
I think that, to be fair, my time of that is now probably past, but certainly at the outset, with my involvement through Dave and different people, we were trailblazing along and find out, as you say, you never forget a lesson learnt from mistakes. That's the biggest one, and there was so much going on, so much revelation. And manufacturers weren't aware either. The control systems, and I'm talking about big companies, you know, big worldwide corporations, and the kit was, when I look back and think what we were doing, there was, when the heat pumps just started to really take off with some local authorities, I can remember standing doing presentations to groups of people in like sheltered bungalows, things like that, where they were going to take them off storage heaters, install wet systems with a heat pump, and I'm standing there telling them how great it is because they're going to get a COP of 2.5.
Yeah, it's come on then, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know, I look at mine now, I'm seeing 5.5 out of a heat pump, and I think anything that now, if people are saying below 4, they're getting concerned. And it's how fast it's changing. Engineers are learning fast. In certain sectors, I might say.
So,
there's still some horror stories going on.
So I just want to mention, because I'm trying to work it out in my own head really. So Rheem are a massive company, aren't they, Dave? And they acquired you a couple of years before they then acquired Dijon, and then obviously Dijon and Intergas wanted to work together to create this new product, didn't they?
Yes, yeah. So it was really to complement the range of other products that we have in there. Right. So Intergas, well known across Europe for gas boilers. Yeah. And then we were looking at integrating or bringing on our heat pump range and linking those in. So obviously then we needed a cylinder, and we got that within the group. So my role within this was to sort of bring a product together that suited the UK market, and so we developed that over a sort of a 6-month period. Really made sure we got the product that would fit for purpose with our product first and foremost. And that's the one beauty of our innovation centre over in the Netherlands, because within the innovation centre we can actually replicate any heat pump through the software that we've got. So we can set that up for flow rates, for sort of replicating sort of low temperatures, high temperatures, whether that be on R32 or R290, and replicate all of that, so that we then could optimise the best performance through our cylinder.
I had the Heat Pump Association on a while back. You're part of the Heat Pump
Association? Yes, yeah. They've actually been here. Charlotte's been here,
Yeah. I mean, and obviously anyone that knows, Intergas was one of the boiler manufacturers that were pushing compensation controls quite early on, and that's why sort of a lot of the boiler engineers I know that wanted to sort of do best practice sort of went to Intergas back in the day, and another German manufacturer we know. But going back to this whole thing of the changes you've seen, Steve, have there been any recent changes? So let's say if you look at the last, well, you've been here with the last 2 years.
Where have you been?
I mean, it's been kind of speeding up, hasn't it? Anything that sort of struck you as what's happening sort of really, really new, sort of that's happened in sort of the last couple of years? I mean, what I'm trying to think, sort of, people have got talking about open loop. That's obviously a big thing now, isn't it? And
open volume on a heat pump system, and that's probably crossing over slightly into the gas systems as well. I think most people are now looking at going with priority hot water, whereas it always used to be.
Well, that was a big Intergas thing, wasn't it? Priority hot
water.
Yes,
yeah, that's been massive.
Your S and your Y plans at one point, wasn't it? But now, I think most engineers, good engineers, are going with priority hot water. But different innovations. I know you got me that one.
Well, picking up with the priority hot water, so the two people are Richard Burrows and Kimbo. So obviously people know Kimbo for the Kimbo course. He was the one really pushing that priority hot water via Intergas, wasn't he? And Richard Burrows was as well. I mean, that's kind of one of the things Intergas became sort of famous for across the board of engineers. As engineers started to learn a bit more, it's just putting a combi on the wall. They started to learn a bit about priority hot water, didn't they?
Yes. It's very sort of unique, really. The Intergas boiler from it's got 4 moving parts in it, so there's very little that can actually go wrong with it, and the software again within that.
That's 2 more than Nathan.
So within the unit, the software that we've actually got then helps it to actually sort of get that swap over to your priority hot water easily and seamlessly, really. And there's no, if I look back at the old sort of oil boiler world where you had a hot water store on a combi, and you'd got that there, and you'd always got to keep that at a level. There's none of that within what we've got.
You two know the old boiler world.
Oh yes, yeah, very well.
As been there, done that. I think the worst, you're asking recent things, but where I see it's not a change of innovation, it's a change in a whole new set of problems, and that's, everyone's banging on about training now, aren't they?
Mainly me.
Yeah, and some solutions are coming through, like everybody obviously in the game knows the heat geek, and that is a very good way to try and get the information over. But where I see the problem is it's the level of engineers that are coming through. I think everything got so easy for a while, with combis were just so clever. It didn't really matter what system they were bolted onto. And the new build market obviously had a massive push fit, exactly. So, and it's no disrespect to the guys who came up through that industry, but what was happening, people were going off and maybe never worked within this industry at all, through a friend or whatever, they'd go do their gas course. When you come out with a gas ticket, what you're qualified to do is hang a boiler on the wall, fit a flue and put a gas pipe to it. But they were immediately labelled heating engineer. And the old heating engineer really has sort of died out. It's almost now that sort of knowledge is only for the commercial market. You Paul Hulls, people like that have got that fantastic knowledge. And that's where the heat geek thing is, what it's done is really reinvented the wheel. Adam's been very clever in bringing that back and teaching the basics, because people didn't know it. Systems were too simple, weren't they? You just fixed a box on the wall, connected the pipes, and away you went. So now all the focus is on training. Everyone's saying, yeah, we've got to get all these people ready for heat pumps. I don't think it is heat pump training they need, it's heat engineer training. You've got to understand before you can go on to the heat pump side.
That's what we're trying to do here, really. We're sitting in our training centre here at Kidderminster. When you look round, we've got every one of our products actually set up and working. And the whole point of that is that we can get an engineer in and actually talk to them, not necessarily about, yes, it shows you exactly how you can fit a boiler, how you can fit a heat pump, how you can fit our hybrid system, how you can fit our cylinders, how you can fit our buffers, all of that's here. But we're also showing you how to fit it as a system, and how it works together, and how it interacts with the controls that you've got, and how we can fit all of that together. And that's a key part of what we do here. Really, it's more about making sure that we try and overcome the problems that installer may have on site, so that when he's there, he's got the answers there.
Yeah, you've got to have the understanding.
Exactly, but not only that, we do have a team of our own engineers out and about there to support that. Right across the country, from literally from Land's End to John O'Groats, to cover that, to make sure that if an engineer's having a problem, we've got somebody there that can support that.
You're doing all the commissioning yourselves in-house?
Yes, on our hybrid systems in particular,
yes,
because we do a mono and a split system. So for those, we send our own engineers out to actually do that. So they're all F-gas sort of approved or certified.
Understand, because the service costs to a company, and most people would never think of this, your average engineers, but the service costs to companies is massive.
Massive, yeah.
And that's another thing that sort of shoots things in the foot. We were talking about should we or shouldn't we have a buffer? So many manufacturers say you must fit a buffer, you must fit a bypass. And what they're doing is specifying that to try and reduce the amount of calls going into their call centre and the load on their engineers. And so, yeah, I can understand with a hybrid system, it makes great sense. Send your own engineer, because otherwise you're going to just be under an avalanche of calls.
Exactly.
And that's probably a future problem building up for all the suppliers and manufacturers now, isn't it? That's trying to maintain and keep the service and the tech side going is going to catch them out. It's such a load.
Well, I suppose people that are sort of become excited about understanding the industry probably don't realise the biggest profit loss in it. So if you're a large manufacturer and you've now gone into installation of heat pumps, probably the biggest sort of profit loss thing is this whole servicing and warranting and maintenance, isn't it? And I think that's why we're seeing some of the big companies, well-known companies, now outsourcing that.
Yes.
So as a company, you kind of, shareholders don't see that profit loss, I suppose. I mean, that's very interesting to me. That's getting outsourced. But like you said, you've got your own engineers. Will go and commission it up, because obviously commissioning is a big problem, Steve, in this industry, especially in the new build. I see.
Well, even if you're sending your own engineers, if there's an installation problem, it's picked up right at the word go, isn't it? Rather than the problem builds, the installing engineer keeps backwards and forwards, then passing it back to the company. They eventually send somebody out. It's just becoming a prolonged problem, and all the time the customer at the end of the day is suffering through that, aren't they?
Yeah.
They become disillusioned with the product gets a bad name. That's all we see, isn't it? Heat pumps don't work.
Navy have just outsourced theirs to British Gas, and that's really
coming,
interesting.
yeah.
And there's another big company we know of that I don't think it's been publicly announced yet, so I won't mention it. But they're now outsourcing their sort of maintenance type, tech side, service side. Oh, I thought of a thing that you would have seen in the recent years.
Go on.
Antifreeze valves.
Oh,
They've become, because you've been fitting this stuff for a long time. There's people who've been fitting it for a long time in Sweden and Finland. You've never used glycol or antifreeze valves, have you?
no. NIBE will tell you that they don't require glycol in their systems. It's a new, it's a new phenomenon. Antifreeze valves. Don't know what they're all about.
Well, everyone's making them now, aren't they?
Exactly, and yeah, it's a bit scary. You just think how much pressure and how much lobbying is going to go on. How long will it be before people start saying, hang on, it's going to be a regulation to fit an antifreeze valve? And it's a joke. It crazes me, because, Dave will know he's got a history in the oil boiler market. So you've got people running around putting heat pumps in, fitting antifreeze valves, because they're scared from all the stories that the plate exchanger might split. And
I've never seen one.
The same people will quite happily go and fit an external oil combi, which has got the cold main and the domestic hot water connected to it. Well, there's no glycol in them, is there?
No. Or antifreeze valve.
Yeah, and that's been going on for years. Never any problems. And I'm sure if you went to a major oil boiler manufacturer like Grant or Worcester, they'll tell you they don't get any complaints. They don't have any issues. So if they're not getting them on cold mains, why are we all worrying about heat pumps? It's a problem that doesn't exist, isn't it?
When you've been fitting these for years, you've never had a
I've never known of one.
No.
Never.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, this industry is interesting. I mean, anyone that makes anything, if they see a market, they'll try. I mean, look at the magnetic filter market back when that started. 1 minute there's just one Chrysalis product, and the next minute there's about 49 OEMs, isn't there, and stuff like that overnight, and the inhibitor market. So your engineers, you've got two teams of them, I think, haven't you? Going at, so they don't fit this stuff then.
No. No, and we're fine. We've never had any issues. We've got plenty of kit out there, and we're not the only ones. Most of the boys are using the most of the boys who are doing the demineralised water,
Oh, yeah.
they're not putting any additives in.
No.
They've got no issues.
I'm doing a talk about that actually at Installer Show. I've got a chemical-free water treatment.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, going back to our cylinders then. So they're made. So I'm thinking of like, why would people think, Intergas cylinders? And how do I pronounce that again, Dave? X cylinder. It's not
Cylinder.
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 Yeah.
So I'm trying. So some of the USPs is it's made of this 444, which is very durable,
Robust.
very robust. The welding, obviously, which I found quite interesting because growing up with a brother that kind of does that, very high quality, and the insulation, the way that is fitted around it is very, very good. You've got the coil, which is quite interesting. It's 28 mil, so most manufacturers making cylinders aren't using 28 mil, are they?
No, most are 22 mil, the corrugated.
Yeah, the corrugated.
There is apparently a case for the corrugated creates
Surface area.
and tumble effect.
Right.
Whereas, as Dave said earlier, their coil is rifled, so that increase. It's called Reynolds factor. It's basically that you don't get laminar flow through the coil. So it's the tumble effect, so you're getting the full effect of that heated water. It's all tumbling, so you're getting the heat to the surface all the time.
And why don't people use 20? Because I think it's quite a very high technical process to coil 28 mil stainless, isn't it?
Yes, particularly from a smooth coil, you do see it as a corrugated, but corrugated is a lot easier to coil really from that. It's a lot more flexibility within it. I think from our perspective, you need some very sort of intricate machinery to actually do that, and a lot of space as well, really, because you're looking at sort of 17 meters plus, as a length. You've got to have a long sort of shop really to sort of it's lying flat on the floor and then being coiled through a machine to actually give you that. Some of them we double up as well, so we have a weld on that coil, so we can double up on that size of that, depending on what size cylinder and what the requirement is of that there. So all of that is sort of done specifically within that, and all of our sort of jigs, tooling and all of that is all in-house made as well, so everything's made in there specifically for the requirements that we have within the business.
Because I suppose some people think corrugated is used to increase surface area, but it's possibly used because it's a much easier manufacturing process to coil.
Correct, yeah. It is a lot easier. You can literally almost do it by hand, and I've seen it done by hand where they're taking it just round another cylinder and wrapping it round to put it into that. Whereas you physically couldn't do that with the smooth coil.
That's an impressive piece of machinery. I've seen it in action.
Did the ones you put in, Steve, are they out in Norfolk where we're from?
Yes, yeah.
What they connected to, air source or water source?
One's on air source, and then I've got a ground source on the other one. That's a 250 litre cylinder, and that's it's a 12 kilowatt heat pump. But timing that one out, we're doing that from 10 degrees incoming cold main. We're reaching our 47 degrees in just over 35 minutes on that one.
Now I suppose because you haven't been on the show for a long time,
I haven't been anywhere for a long time.
And one of the topics that comes up in the episodes and on social media is MCS and BUS. So you've been involved with MCS a long time, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I'm going to put words into your mouth, but I don't think you find the process that cumbersome, do you? You're so used to it, I suppose. But I mean, are there any issues, or have things been made better? Is the BUS, anything about that you can talk about?
Well, MCS is now hopefully changing to become a little bit easier, but they are adding a few more bits over the next 2 years, the plan is to bring some more requirements in where when we register the installation, we've now got to put the sound levels and things like that in onto the MCS certificate,
Right.
because the 1 metre rule on planning, 1 metre from your boundary, is being taken out.
Is that a good thing? You like that? I mean, or did that ever...
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean,
Did that affect you much? Because I mean, sometimes
yeah,
you've
it
worked
makes
on
it
big
awkward,
places,
doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
If you're in an urban environment,
Yeah.
a metre from a
Yeah.
boundary can be quite restrictive, and it's crazy when one side of the fence you're trying to get a metre away, and the other side of the fence, right close to it, is a gas or an oil boiler that's making more, and the flue is making more noise than the heat pump ever will. So yeah, that's a good move. MCS, it's been spoken about so many times, hasn't it, that yes, there's paperwork, there's issues with it. Whether they're going to sort it out in the end to make it smoother, I don't know. There's got to be some body there, a body controlling what's happening. We need some legislation around it. They've got to look at the standards for manufacturers like Dave. They've got to look at the quality of the installs for consumer protection. And of course, there's got to be culpability, because they're spending with the grants public money. So that's got to be monitored, and it'll never be a perfect situation. The BUS, yeah, the scheme's not bad. It has settled down, been going well, but because we've now got some changes coming, I think that it looks as if they're now going to include hybrids.
Hybrids and air-to-air, I think.
And air-to-air.
Yes. Yeah.
And I wonder where that will go. The hybrid's fine, yeah, I can see the reason for them. There's a market there with the type of housing and new builds particularly, and it gives a level of, I suppose, assurance to certain consumers. You know, they'd like to go green, they'd like to have a heat pump, but it's a bit scary, want something to fall back on. So a hybrid just takes that worry away. I can see the reason for it.
Your thoughts about the air-to-air interest me, because obviously that's what my family are known for, air-to-air, and I've been a big advocate of air-to-air. I mean, I don't know we'd needed a grant for, because air-to-air stuff's actually quite cheap, but you're worried about install quality, aren't you?
Yeah, I just wonder where that one's going to go. The AC industry, you see some interesting installs, shall we say, and I just wonder where it's now going to go. If that gets thrown out into the general market, and we're getting the engineers getting themselves F-gas registered to start diving into that, I just wonder what companies are going to be coming into it.
So that's interesting.
Where
That's
it's going to go.
never...
If the grant comes against it, I don't know whether it's going to be a reduced level of grant. I've not heard any detail. It just makes me think this. It might not be great.
That's an interesting point. Something I've not really thought about or talked about. Obviously, my family do commercial world. I mean, there's been poor installs going on in commercial worlds for a while, and there's a lot of AC companies out there, and most of them probably wouldn't even want to go into the domestic world. But I suppose what might happen now is you'll get the, let's say, gas engineers, and I'm not being derogatory, but they might think, all I've got to do is go and get F-gas, and now I've got another technology I can do. Now, when you get your F-gas, you're kind of learning about the gases. It's a bit like when you go and get your gas, you're learning how to do a safe installation because you've got a flammable gas. You're not learning anything about hydronics. And so that's probably a similar issue here then. People go and get their F-gas, and then away they go, they start sticking this equipment in.
How are they going to control the design? That's another thing, isn't it? Your heat loss, your heat gain, everything else with air-to-air, that's a little bit different.
That's interesting, because you're the first person that's ever brought that up.
And I wonder if there'll be because obviously there's some boiler manufacturers who have already got an air-to-air product.
Oh, yeah.
Those who haven't, are we going to see the scramble to get a product that we saw with the air source heat pumps?
Well, it'll be a big OEM type.
And there we go. Here we go again.
God, you're so negative, Steve.
No, I'm not negative. I suppose I've been through the ups and downs of the business. With the three of us have seen it. And you think you're going forward a couple of steps, and you find going back three.
Yeah, take 4 back.
That's interesting, then, isn't it? What are you seeing any positives then? Let's talk about some positives. So, obviously, we're seeing some good engineers come along, aren't we? So people like our friend Damon, for instance. 1 minute he's a gas boiler engineer, a good one, and then sort of 4 years ago, he's going great guns now. You're seeing engineers get really excited about engineering.
It's the knowledgeable engineers who are taken to it and they're flying, aren't they? And there's some really good quality engineers out there. Yeah, Damo gets a lot of publicity and a lot of exposure, but there's loads of good engineers out there. There really is. Yeah,
there's the lad you helped, you went and did his...
young John Wood.
Wood,
or Nodge as he's known.
He's great, because he's ex-military, wasn't he, and sort of come into this industry.
Yes, yeah. There's plenty of good engineers.
What about these larger companies that are sort of setting up? What's the quality we're seeing, or you're seeing, or hearing about?
Or the deterioration in quality, shall we say?
Is that a problem then, do you think?
Yeah, I think some of the big companies, the mass marketing companies, and the big push, definitely, there's a lot to be desired. Yeah. That's a tricky one to get into.
It is tricky because obviously if we want mass deployment, we can't just rely on a small SME and sole trader industry, can we? I suppose you have to have a...
No, I think what you've got is a fair amount in larger companies of de-skilling, so they're reliant on the manufacturer to actually give them a product that is easy and simple to fit, and then rely heavily on them for the technical support and to make sure that it is actually fitted correctly, and then support to actually do a bit of after sales support on site, really. So we're seeing that from that side with the larger sort of installer companies.
Because that happens in the boiler industry, doesn't it? De-skilled, and then we saw these massive entities. I mean, we've always had the top massive entity because it came from the regional gas boards, and then obviously we had British Gas, but massive sort of boiler installation companies that even went online and stuff like that, and literally were just being thrown in sometimes.
Yeah. But everything keeps repeating, doesn't it? Everyone goes on about the grants with the heat pumps. Oh, should there be grants? Shouldn't there be grants? But those people quickly forget, well, still there is funding available now for gas boilers. We had like the eco schemes, we've had them all coming through, haven't we? And it's just a continuous circle of emperor's new clothes each time, isn't it?
Did your company ever get involved with eco? Or
no.
Did you ever consider it? Or
no, it's never been a requirement. And
but you would have known some of the companies in Norfolk, because I do. Some of the companies in Norfolk that did, and they became quite rich.
Yeah, and if that's what you want to target, if that's what you're going to go for, I can see why people did it. But I'm not that animal. We prefer keeping with the customers. We prefer that level of quality. We're keeping it small, purposely keeping it small.
Now you mentioned the word training a little while ago. Have you got any ideas around training? I'm known for being a bit critical of the 3-day heat pump training course because you've got gas engineers going on it. We've got this voucher system where they either go on a training, they haven't got to pay anything to go on the training, or they get they pay a little bit, but it's being subsidised by the £500 voucher. So you've got these gas engineers going on it, and I would argue some of them are just curious about heat pumps. So they go on this course, they come away, they forget it, and they never touch a heat pump ever again. I personally don't think that's the best way we inspire people to get into it, and it's definitely not the best way to train them. I mean, like I say, we just mentioned John. You went out and mentored him a little bit, and a bit of hand holding to make him feel confident and competent. What have you got any ideas of how people should be trained? I mean, obviously you and I come from the back of the days of indentured apprenticeships, but
no, I don't know how we dealt deal with the training thing. I can't profess to be an expert on that at all. Obviously I've got opinions of it. I don't know about this £500 voucher scheme. I suppose what will happen is, as you said, people will go test the water. I would imagine you'll get as many go forward with it as turn up, go through it and think, not for me. It's too complex, there's too much involvement, the paperwork side too heavy for me, I don't need it.
It's as if there should be sort of an awareness day, let's say half a day, so you haven't got to take a lot of time off an gas engineer's day, and they can go and just places like this, plate manufacturers, maybe you'll see where heat pumps are, a bit of an awareness day, and that's when they can make their decision, it's not really for me. Because a lot of people, we all think people are on social media. I mean, you've come off it a bit, but most people aren't on social media, so they aren't involved in these discussions. So that 3-day course is kind of their awareness to this whole industry of heat pumps. And then, like you say, some of them think, this isn't really for me. And of course, the whole point of that government-funded course is to get people into installing heat pumps. And my argument with sort of the people involved in that scheme is, well, that's not what's happening. You're teaching thousands, and that's not what's happening. They're not getting into the industry.
Right.
So maybe a little an awareness day where they come for half a day just to see the kit, and then they think, right, I wouldn't mind doing that 3-day heat pump course because I want to get into it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something you come from that world, Dave, manufacturer. I don't know if that's something manufacturers are very sort of considered or run.
They are done actually.
Yeah,
they are done as sort of almost like an awareness day. It is. It's a difficult one because you put these awareness days on, and you'd be surprised at how many are no-shows for awareness days. So you set them up. You look at this room here. We can get sort of 12, 15 people in here. You book your 12, 15 people on it. You turn away 7 or 8 that say they want to come on it, and you can't fit them in. And then on the day when you've got your awareness day, you get 8 turn up. Yeah. So it is a problem within that. There's things that have been done in the past by charging a deposit and sort of saying, you get your deposit back if you turn up for the course. But it is an inherent issue when you're just looking at an awareness day. People either want to come and think they're getting a certificate, or they want, although they want to come and really get into the nitty gritty of the product and spend a bit of time actually going through it. We all know, and you know this better than I do, Nathan, that when people come, they retain about 20% of what they learn. So if you've got them for half a day awareness course, what are they actually going away with, really? So you've got to try and really balance it out with people that are serious about it and want to get there, or we've had them at shows. You go to installer shows, or the home building and renovating show. We used to be on that quite a lot, and you get what's called tyre kickers. So people coming on the stand time and time again. You do get that from people wanting to come on training as well. It's just, let's go and have a look at that, see what's going on. So
it's an awkward one, isn't it? Because if you got small 1, 2, possibly 3-man companies, it only takes a phone call and your plans are out the window. Suddenly you've got to miss whatever you're booked onto and go into work, sort things out. So I can see the problem with the no-shows. And maybe with the voucher scheme it's a bit more of a commitment to make them get there, because otherwise they're going to lose out on it, aren't they?
Well,
the
voucher scheme, so that goes straight to the training centre. I mean, some training centres, like you said, Dave, offered that whole training free and then realised people weren't turning up. So they now actually do say, look, it's £100 to come on your 3-day training. Yeah. It's subsidised, the 500 goes to the sort of training people. It's a tough one. You guys are going to be at installer. Do you know your stand number yet?
No. I'll get now told off by our marketing departments when they listen to this, because we're definitely there. We're not far away from where we were before. We're fairly near the the sort of entrance as you come in.
Yeah.
Fairly big stand, 100 square metre stand. So we've got a fair side where we're showing all of our wares as such, welcome anybody to
And
come and see
you'll
us.
have that open cylinder or something like that?
Yes, yeah, you'll have that on there. We'll have a full suite of our sort of encased unit, tank on tank, and all of that.
Are you going this year, Steve?
Yeah, this will be
He'll be on the stand.
my return.
I'll put the stand number on my show notes for this episode, so when it goes out, we'll put the stand number on, and
Perfect.
people can come and see your lovely stainless steel shiny product.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Steve, thank you for coming on the show. It's
Thank
good to
you
see you
for having
again.
me.
I'm glad you're alive. And Dave, great meeting up with you again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. And this is, for everyone listening, this is the start of a new season. It's been sponsored by Intergas Heating Solutions. Thank you very much for listening.